Welcome to the Knight and Rose Show, where we discuss practical ways of living out an authentic Christian worldview. I'm Wintery Knight.
And I'm Desert Rose.
Welcome, Rose. So before we get started with today's episode, I was wondering if you could give us a quick update on all of your secret adventures.
I would love to, yes. So I am still teaching youth group. I'm still working on my doctorate, doing lots of reading and research for my dissertation that I'm excited about. And I've had a lot of really cool writing and publication opportunities that I just cannot say no to. And so I've been having a lot of fun, doing a lot of work, really busy, and grateful for all the opportunities that I'm being given.
All right, that sounds awesome. So in today's show, I wanted to kind of push back on something that I sometimes see in churches where the talk about Jesus is mainly about how Jesus is a savior for our sins and not so much about how the Lord part works. So for me, the Lord part has to do with you read the Gospels, you read about Jesus in the Bible, and then you understand his teachings, his example, his values. And then when you go out into the world and you're deciding what to prioritize and how to make your decisions, you kind of consider how you can best reflect the things that Jesus cares about. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I've seen that a lot too, where it seems like Jesus is presented as just kind of a get out of hell free card.
Mm-hmm. Fire insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We actually have a mutual friend where we were talking to him and he said that to us. We were saying, hey, how does Jesus come into your decision making? And he said, he doesn't. Like, I'm doing what I want to do and right. I'm saved by the sinner's prayer. He has great faith. I hope he doesn't hear this episode, but he's saved by the sinner's prayer. And we were showing him, teachings of the Bible and saying, these are the priorities. And he was like, I don't care about that. So with that and other experiences we've had in mind, we thought that it would be a good chance for us to your favorite podcasters to go over the teachings of Jesus, and let's all just reconnect and maybe talk about the meaning of these teachings and maybe how to apply it. So
yeah, so we've just picked maybe 10 or so teachings. Obviously, we can't go through all the teachings of Jesus in the next 45 minutes, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, so let's get started with the first one. So the first one comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 18, verse 37. And it says this, "Therefore Pilate said to him, 'So you are a king?' And Jesus answered, 'You say correctly that I am a king. For this purpose I have been born, and for this I have come into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who is on the side of truth listens to my voice.'" So the first thing I want to say about this is, does everyone who claims to be a follower of Jesus understand that Christianity is concerned with truth and that Christianity itself makes statements about the world and that the statements that it makes about the world are true, like objectively true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of something I saw on social media yesterday where someone made a comment that everyone is going to have to face judgment in the end. This was particularly in response to a post about some horrific things that are happening around the world. And a woman responded that they're going to have to face judgment one day. And a bunch of other people started responding to that with, well, I don't have to face judgment because I don't believe in Christianity. That's not my truth. So I won't be judged. And it was just the strangest thing ever.
Yeah. I don't believe in the police, so I can go as fast as I want. I don't believe in taxes, so I don't have to pay them. Please, IRS, this is a joke. Don't be calling me.
I don't believe that there's an 18-wheeler coming, so I'm just going to walk right in front of it. I mean, it's so strange to me that you would think that because you don't believe in something, then it doesn't apply to you. Like,
JP Moreland has a funny phrase for this. He goes, listen, if Christianity is true, you've got a problem, whether you want to believe it or not.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, Christianity is a set of truth claims about facts regarding the world and how it is and how it operates. And how we ought to live. This is so different from what I've seen in a lot of American families, I would say, where people seem to think that the whole point of Christianity is just to teach their children moral values. And so they don't, they maybe have left the church when they were 18 years old. They get married, they have children. The children are getting to be like 5, 8, 10 years old. And they're like, oh, someone has to teach our kids morals. So let's start going to church.
Right.
And
like family and community is number one. I got to tell you, the way that I was growing up, there was no family and there was no community. I wasn't raised in a church going home. What I was interested in was, how can I stop myself from destroying my own life with stupidity because I don't know what the truth is about things, Right. So the truth was the main issue, because that was what was going to stop me from making mistakes that would cause huge problems.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And another common reason that people call themselves Christians is they think that makes them look good to others. That's becoming less and less the case as our culture overall rejects Christianity, because I would say largely because it restricts their sexual freedom and perhaps other just absolute autonomy. But if this were the case, then the typical approaches to evangelism that Americans have used may make a little bit of sense, but share why Christianity has worked for you and what your personal testimony about how it's propped you up and given you status or whatever. And
people are, my experience is you go up to people who are non-Christians and you say, do you have a feeling of guilt? And if so, then Jesus is the answer to that feeling, and it will give you better feelings. And that is so different than, do you remember our podcast with Gunter Beckley? And he was like, I don't want any of this to be true, but I'm going to read about it. Oh my goodness, it looks like it is true. I'm going to have to believe this now. What is going to happen to me? My friends, won't like me. So I love that. We love that. And I think that is how I thought evangelism should work, is that you would talk to the person and they would say something wrong, like false. Like they would say the Gospels were written 500 years after the events. And then you'd say, I don't think so. And here's the reason why. And then you give them a true belief. And then they would say, I got to give this another chance. I got to give this another look. So that's how I would think evangelism works. But actually, I'm not sure that that's the normal.
Yeah, that's definitely not the norm, I don't think, at least in what I've observed. I like to ask a lot of questions, talk to people, and look for opportunities to share truth by listening for people to give me insights into their worldview as they're talking about their work, their children, their hobbies, or whatever interests them. People's worldview comes out as they speak. When we view Christianity as a comprehensive worldview, it becomes apparent how truth comes to bear in just about every conversation. There are opportunities everywhere to give people something to think about, not to share the 4 spiritual laws or get people to just pray a certain prayer for, insurance, like you said, but to challenge their worldview assumptions, give them something to think about.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the second one. This is actually a set of 3 verses. I'm going to read them all. It's short. Matthew chapter 12, 38 to 40. John chapter 5, verse 36, and John chapter 10, 37 to 38. So let's start with the first one. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees said to him, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. But he answered and said to them, An evil and adulterous generation craves a sign, and so no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah, the prophet. For just as Jonah was in the stomach of the sea monster for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. That's the first one. And here's the second one. But the testimony I have is greater than the testimony of John, for the works which the Father has given me to accomplish, the very works that I do, testify about me, that the Father has sent me. And then the last one. If I do not do the works of my Father, do not believe me. But if I do them, even though you do not believe me, believe the works, so that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I in the Father. So see if you guys can find the common denominator in those 3, and then we'll give you a minute and then we'll get started. So Rose, what did you think of that?
Well, this is a bit silly, but the translations that I've used, I've never noticed the phrase sea monster before in that passage, and I love that.
I'm using NASB, my beloved NASB.
The sea monster. That's great. So I noticed that what's going on here is Jesus is offering a sign. He's offering testimony. He's offering works.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are all examples of evidence to support his claims.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going around talking about, do you have a burning in your bosom? Which we kind of laugh about Mormons doing that, but really what evangelicals tend to do is no different when we're just going, oh, don't you have a feeling? Don't you feel like it's true? Don't you feel like God told you to go buy a bigger house? Don't you feel like God is calling you to whatever, beach ministry you want to do or whatever?
Yeah.
He's using the types of evidence that would be admissible in a court of law.
Yeah. I mean, the resurrection is like, hey, do you remember that time I died? Well, here I am again. And you guys know this. So when I'm telling you stuff, believe me. Do you see this guy who's lying on the ground? He's paralyzed. Okay, now he's not. Okay. So when I'm telling you things about God the Father and how to be reconciled with him, believe me, because you have the works, and the works, are the vindication of the word. So my experience in churches is that I often meet people and I ask them basic questions about how they would demonstrate the truth of some of their beliefs, not all, but some, to someone who doesn't accept the Bible as inerrant and who is asking for evidence. And my experience is that it's kind of half and half. Half of them are going to say, I've read Frank Turek, I've read Lee Strobel, I've read J. Warner Wallace, and I'm good to go. But the other half is going to say, I don't know how to demonstrate that to a non-Christian. And so this is the concern I have is, are we following the leader? Are we imitating the leader? The leader uses evidence, and we should be able to do that. Even think of 1 Peter 3:15. We should be ready with an answer for anybody who asks us for the reason for our hope.
Exactly. And there's so many passages. It's not like we just found the only three passages to mention here. I mean, it's all throughout the Gospels, all throughout the New Testament, all throughout the Bible, actually. God in the Old Testament even used miraculous signs and wonders, testimony, eyewitness testimony, and things like that. So
yeah, and this is for non-Christians. We don't tell them to have faith. We say, "Oh, you're non-Christian? That's fine. Here's some evidence. You should believe it." Anyway, let's go on to the next one, which is Matthew chapter 16, 21 to 25. And it says, "From that time, Jesus began to point out to his disciples that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and to suffer many things from the elders, chief priests, and scribes, and to be killed, and to be raised up on the third day. And yet Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, 'God forbid, Lord, this shall never happen to you.' But he," that's Jesus, "turned and said to Peter, 'Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are not setting your mind on God's purposes, but men's.' Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'If anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it.'"
Okay, I'm really confused now because I really thought that passage said something like, if anyone wants to follow me, he must gain the world's approval and step into luxury, believing for all things, including perfect health.
No. That's just prosperity gospel stuff. Is that really in there? I'm joking.
Prosperity?
A lot of people are cashing out Christianity this way. That's why we have this verse in the podcast.
Yeah. I'm still looking for the promises of private jets and mansions now in this life and global platforms where everybody loves you and approves of you. And, all you have to do is speak the truth and you're perfectly healed and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's not here. This is the funny thing. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, I know some of us are struggling financially, but if you're listening in America, or even if you have enough to eat and a roof over your head, you're fine. The reason this verse is interesting is because, do you want to follow Jesus? Do you want to fist bump Jesus? Do you want to talk about the shared experiences like you did at Jesus, and then I did something like it? I wanted to be like you. I wanted to imitate you. So if all that's true, do not buy a mansion and do not want a private jet. I'm saying this kind of in an absolute way, but I'm saying don't seek after luxuries if you think that's going to make you more like Jesus. A much safer plan is to be calm when you do something, step out in faith, you do something for the boss, you follow Jesus, and then it costs you. So I think what the general takeaway from this is that if you speak the truth and you get kickback for it, pushback, it's good. If you defend Jesus and people don't approve of it, it's good. It's a win for you. If you prioritize gospel enterprise, like you want to buy, new mouse or new monitor, but you take the money and you send it to, Ratio Christi so that they can put on a speaking event, it's a win for you. If you, anytime you take action to prioritize things, get up and go to church, to hear something out of the Bible, it's a win for you. I know it's cold, but it's a win for you. Every time you take a hit for Jesus, it's a win for you. Mm-hmm. So let's go to the next one. This is Matthew chapter 20. Verses 24 to 28. So the context here is that James and John's mother are asking Jesus to make sure that her two sons will sit on his right side and left side in the kingdom. And she wanted them to be kind of big bosses and prominent over everyone else. Mm-hmm. So let's see what the chapter says. It says, the passage. It says, "And after hearing this, the other 10 disciples became indignant with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, 'You know that the rulers of the Gentiles domineer over them, and those in high position exercise authority over them. It is not this way among you, but whoever wants to become prominent among you shall be your servant, and whoever desires to be first among you shall be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'"
Yeah, so we're not to try to obtain status in this world by being domineering or striving to gain authority over others so that we will seem really important because we can boss people around. A better way to be prominent in the kingdom, to be in good favor with boss, focus more on eternal things, I think, is to provide value to people around you here and now, and to contribute to something that is actually valuable.
Yeah. Like, I think I'm thinking about working in IT and how we sometimes get, nerdy software engineers who are very quiet, but they have extreme skills. So they can come in and solve a lot of problems. And we naturally promote those people. So they're not loud. They're not trying to get into management. They're not ambitious, but it's just that we feel that if we want the shop to be run well, then we're going to try to promote the people who have a record of solving problems. And I think that's the alternative to saying, I just want to be at the top. I want to rise by, Machiavellian means to be the CEO by being popular and saying what people want to hear so that I can control a lot of people. The alternative to that is to be a problem solver. And then people say, oh, you should be in charge. You actually know what's going on here. So, you can imagine you're co-pilot of a plane, but you don't know how to fly the plane. Don't be the kind of person who says, oh, I'm just going to grab the controls from you because I really want to be in control. Don't do that. Instead, go and become a pilot, get your license, and then say, hey, it looks like we're about to crash. You should probably try this. And that's how you should, get into a leadership position, is because you know how to do it and you know how to solve it. And then people say, you should be making the decisions here. So yeah, be a servant, solve problems for people.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I do think part of the reason the church has declined in influence and support is because too many people have sought positions of authority in the church for the sake of wanting to feel important or to seem important to others, to look important. And that is really quite disastrous.
Definitely. All right. So we're on to the next, and that is Luke chapter 12, verses 33 to 34. And it's short. "Sell your possessions and give to charity. Make yourselves money belts that do not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near, nor does a moth destroy. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also."
Yeah, so this reminds me actually of something I heard when I was involved in a campus ministry my last semester of university for a couple summers afterward. They used to say, live not for the dot, but for the line. So don't live for the dot that is this very brief blip of time on this earth in the fallen world, but live for the line of eternity that goes on and on and on forever. And I love that. I've sought to live my life that way. And it turns out that being part of God's work and living for eternity with eternity in mind actually is amazing and adventurous and awesome and far outweighs any of the joy, certainly that I've experienced from stuff that can be accumulated if we spend money on a bunch of material things now instead of on boss things. Boss things take time. They take money. They require sacrifices. But they are so much greater than devoting our lives to buying a bunch of stuff that gets old and dusty and breaks and gets stolen and requires upkeep and all of that. It is so much fun to give to others who are doing great work, or to invest, to buy money for books for others, for to give to Ratio Christi, to bring in great speakers, to all these things that we talk about in lots of our episodes.
Yeah, so just consider whether material possessions are worth the time and money that they command from you. All right, so let's go to the next one. So this is out of John chapter 15, verses 18 and 19. It says, "If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. And if you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this, the world hates you."
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to remember right now. I think that somehow a lot of Christians in America have concluded that if we're being good Christians, then we're going to be really liked and approved of by everybody. And so if people are not liking us and loving loving our message when we share the truth, it must be because we need a third way of approaching how to share. It must be that we need to stop talking about things that upset and offend people who hate Jesus. And we should just talk about the easy topics. That's ridiculous. Social disapproval by non-Christians is the normal Christian life. It has been from the beginning. It will be until Jesus returns. We cannot live for the approval of others. Of course, they're going to hate us.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you kind of sound like you're squashing the fun of somebody, like you tell a gay couple, hey, if you adopt that child, you know that child is going to lose the relationship with its biological mother, and you are denying it a mother going forward. So you have to be more careful about this. Sometimes your desires have to take a back seat to the needs of the child. And so you shouldn't do anything where you're inflicting harm on other people. So almost universally, people who are Christians are going to say, "Oh, don't tell people they can't do what they want to do. Don't tell people they can't do what makes them happy." So that's the situation we often find ourselves in, where we have to speak up for the truth, speak up for the people who are voiceless, like that little kid, speak up for their needs, and tell the grown-ups, you can't do everything that you want to do that's going to make you happy. You have to think about right and wrong. All right. So next one, it's kind of two passages. They're both from Matthew. One is from chapter 18, 21 to 22, and the other chapter 6, verses 12 and 14. So let me read them. "Then Peter came up and said to him, 'Lord, how many times shall my brother sin against me, and I still forgive them? Up to 7 times? And Jesus said to him, 'I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 77 times. And then the next one is, "And forgive us our debts." This is from the Lord's Prayer. A very good thing to reread occasionally and to pray. It says, "And forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." Wow. So we need to be aggressively trying to reconcile with people who have wronged us, who are repentant or have, made restitution. Do not be the person who holds a grudge and denies reconciliation and forgiveness. Otherwise, there's a threat here. It says, "Neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." So this is serious business, because I don't want to get any, black marks against me for stuff that I can control.
Yeah, that, like you said, that's a big deal. Neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. Wow.
Yeah.
I think it's probably helpful to maybe mention like what, practically speaking, it means to forgive. But I think it's a deliberate choice to release resentment and anger toward someone, to acknowledge the hurt, not to pretend like they never hurt us or they never did anything wrong, but to make the decision to let go of bitterness and entrust God with the justice and healing while maintaining a heart of mercy and compassion. And I think that forgiveness really stands out as something kind of really unique to Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah. this is not something that's easy or fun, that feels good to anybody. It's hard and it's sacrificial, and it tends to inspire others to forgive and release resentment and such. And that doesn't mean that as soon as we make the choice or the decision to release someone of, to release the resentment or the bitterness, that we're just going to immediately feel loving and great and happy, tingly feelings towards someone. But when we make the choice, it does seem that over time, the feelings follow the decision. I think of, of course, of Erica Kirk forgiving her husband's assassin not too long ago. Of course, there was a lot of debate online about whether forgiveness, apart from repentance, is biblically mandated. What I see as Jesus' posture is consistently toward mercy and releasing resentment. I remember a speaker I heard who was a guest speaker, was a female guest speaker at a church that I went to shortly after I became a Christian, and she was sharing about how a man had murdered her daughter, and she made the decision to forgive him and went in and started visiting him in prison. He was not a Christian at the time. And she told him that she had forgiven him because Jesus tells her to. And in her first visit, that's all she said, was that she forgives him, and she's making the decision to release the bitterness and hatefulness and resentment that she feels toward him. And they ended up becoming friends, and she visited him regularly, and he ended up becoming a Christian. And I heard that message and thought of someone in particular who I was just really enraged with, and made the decision that I was going to forgive that person then and there as well. And I didn't really feel forgiving and loving and all that for years, but making that decision was the first critical step.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we probably disagree a little bit on that. I'm more emphasizing, not that we disagree, but that we put a different emphasis. Your emphasis is more, that was a good story, but your emphasis is more subjectively. How should the person who's the victim handle this? And, on their subjective state. And I'm thinking about more like reconciliation along the lines of repentance, being a condition of forgiveness in terms of salvation. Yeah, but I think in general, we both agree that if you have a situation where you really should forgive the person, then you should take the initiative, seek forgiveness if you've done something wrong, or take the initiative and try to forgive the person who's wronged you, because this is godly. This is what Jesus is saying in the passage. So it's pretty neat. It's another situation where you can follow the leader. If you have the right situation, this is a blessing. It's an opportunity.
We're told in Matthew 18, verse 15, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between him alone. So, we're responsible for taking the initiative in that situation. But also, if we sin against our brother and we realize it, we're also supposed to go and take the initiative and go to him first. So either way, we always have the responsibility to take the initiative, seek forgiveness, make the decision to forgive. I will mention, though, I have a friend who has gone through Alcoholics Anonymous the last several years or so. And he was telling me that they have this policy where I think it's like steps 8 and 9 are making a list of all the people you've offended, violated, whatever, and then going to them and seeking reconciliation, seeking their forgiveness. But he said, there are cases when going to the person could just cause trauma all over again, depending on how, what you did to that person. And so if it would cause brand new trauma, open up an old wound that's just going to re-traumatize them, then in that case, they don't actually go to the person directly. And I thought that was wise.
Yeah, I think we're just providing, best practices here and saying it's good if you can do it, if it makes sense, if it works. This is something you should try,
insofar as it depends on us, live in peace with
that's
everybody.
It. You got it. Yeah, and I like that point you made too. All right, let's go to the next one. Matthew chapter 6, verses 5-6. And when you pray, you are not to be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners, so that they will be seen by people. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward in full. But as for you, when you pray, go into your inner room, close your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So, thoughts about this one?
Well, my first thought is that Jesus' teaching here is the opposite of Islam, where they go out into the streets in large numbers and shut down roads and bridges and everything else to pray these elaborate kind of bowing movements and such 5 times a day, and to pray over bullhorns and to make sure that everybody knows it, and to make sure their head hits the rocks enough times that people can see the dent in the forehead so that they know they've been praying 5 times a day and all of that. This is very, very much different than that. When I was ministering to Muslims several years ago, I was often asked why Christians don't pray. And I said, why would you think that Christians don't pray? And they said, well, yeah, we never see you in gathering and praying in front of the churches or whatever. I'm like, yeah, we pray inside the churches and inside our homes and inside our closets. And it's not to gain attention from others, but to talk to our Father in heaven. And it's between us, it's very, very different. We're not seeking to create a performance that gains us some sort of reputation for being pious.
Yeah.
To make sure that people praise us or whatever else.
Yeah. It does make me think, I think what's being talked about here is these are kind of pious things, visible prayers and, spiritual things. And those spiritual things, they don't seem to fit with doing them in public so that people think more highly of your spirituality. So I kind of wonder about this. I know that there's a lot of teachers. I don't have any specifically in mind, but I'm thinking there must be some Christian teachers and leaders who are very mystical, and they kind of imply that God's talking to them directly. God gave me this teaching, this word this morning, and I'm telling you that God's talking to me, publicly. I'm telling you, when I pray privately, things pop into my head that are like, oh my goodness, I forgot about, to do that, or, I got to get up and fix this, things like that. But I don't tell everybody about it. I think the better thing is, just take it inside, but do it, but maybe don't do it where people can see you. So, all right, next, this is Matthew again, chapter 5, verse 44. These are some tough sayings here. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may prove yourselves to be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise, that's S-U-N, on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. I'll go first for this one. So this is a tough one for me. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't have a lot of enemies. There are people who have wronged me, in the past, but it's really, not that many. But I think in this case, it's another opportunity. If you do have someone like that who really sets you back, you should definitely see it as an opportunity to pray for God to reach out to those people and teach them about himself so that they become alert to the needs of people around them so that they don't do things like that. So I think that's how I would cash out this, they're literally saying in the passage, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Well, when I pray for people who are wrong and they've done bad things, it's so easy to just pray, God, please you are the source of all goodness. You are the reason why any of us follow you. It's because you are drawing us to you. And so I'm praying for this other person who has wronged me, that you would draw them to you. And just to be frank, I can foresee a time where these people do amazing good actions, and it might be because you talked to God about them. And wouldn't you feel a lot better when you saw that? So I think that this is a really practical approach. What do you think about this passage? Yeah,
I've been to, I think, 35 countries around the world. A lot of them are third world countries. A lot of them are where Christians are heavily, heavily persecuted. And I think of the believers in places like Egypt, Iran, and Afghanistan. They're actively being persecuted. They've lost a lot of friends, fellow believers, to violence. And their response is to pray regularly for the people who are trying to end their lives.
Mhm.
And it's an amazing thing. It's awesome. In the mosques, there are these like kind of standard prayers that call on Allah to curse
Mhm.
Christians and Jews. And in Christian churches in Muslim majority countries,
Mhm.
you can walk in and hear Christians every week praying for those who are trying to end their lives. And so it's inspiring, it's humbling.
Mhm.
And I think it's valuable to remember that love is not just a feeling,
Mhm.
it's a decision as much as it is an emotion. It's a selfless, sacrificial, unconditional commitment to the well being of others.
Mhm.
And that, as we see here in the passage, it reflects God's own character because God sends the sun and the rain on the good and the evil.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to say for a culture that we live in today, it's not affirming or celebrating whatever someone does or whatever they believe or whatever's making them feel good right this minute, whatever brings them pleasure immediately,
Mhm.
even though you see the train coming down the tracks toward them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a commitment to their well-being, to their good, even if that means upsetting them in the short term in
Mhm.
order to tell them the truth in love.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So tell them the truth, show them why you think it's true, and they disagree with you. That's love. I don't know if,
Hmm.
if that's a popular way of seeing it these days. And definitely be available to answer their questions if they have things that they are investigating. Make time for that. That's love too. So how about this one from Matthew chapter 6? Everybody's going to go and read Matthew after this. Matthew chapter 6, verses 31 to 33. Do not worry then, saying, what are we to eat? Or what are we to drink? Or what are we to wear for clothing? For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things, for your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided to you.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. It
Mm-hmm.
speaks against fear and anxiety. It speaks against worry, and it points us toward pursuing boss priorities
Yeah.
as the most important, and trusting Jesus to meet our needs as we pursue what is right and good. Since it mentions, worry specifically about eating and drinking and clothing and things like that, it kind of reminds me that work is right and good. Work is excellent and praiseworthy.
Mm-hmm.
The work came before the fall. It's not a result of the fall. It's the thorns and thistles that are the result of the fall. And the kind of the feelings of lack of fulfillment or not being appreciated, not getting to do what we love and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
work itself is excellent. And I think we need to return to our roots and rediscover a biblical theology of work.
Mm-hmm.
Today, it seems a lot more common to look down on work and say, and just kind of demand that the rich pay for everything and not value contribution so much,
Mm-hmm.
and not be concerned if people just want to stay home and watch TV and count on the government to provide everything for them. That's not biblical at all.
Yeah. I think for me, what I get out of this passage is seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and these things will be provided to you. So you're not making eating and drinking and clothing the end of in themselves. Instead, you're saying, hey, I need to be doing kingdom work. And I think instead of saying you're recklessly hoping that manna will fall from heaven to feed you, what you're saying is, hey, I need to do kingdom work. That means that I have to have some kind of plan to make my working, my earning and saving do that. But you're not doing that because you're focused on those things. You're doing it in the right context so that the kingdom comes first and then all these other things that are practical come second. And so I wouldn't say that this was a license to be reckless, but it's definitely a command to not be materialistic and put kingdom last, so that kingdom gets whatever the leftovers are. That's not right. All right. So last one for today is Mark chapter 7. We're starting from verse 18, the second part of it. You can read the whole thing, and we're going to verse 23. So this is Jesus talking. Do you not understand that whatever goes into the person from outside cannot defile him, because it does not go into his heart, but into his stomach, and is eliminated? Thereby he declared all foods clean. And he was saying, that which comes out of the person, that is what defiles the person. For from within, out of the hearts of people, come the evil thoughts, acts of sexual immorality, thefts, murders, acts of adultery, deeds of greed, wickedness, deceit, indecent behavior, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the person.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that one?
So in the context of our culture, it does stand out to me that Jesus did not say criminals are just the victims of their environment. They have no volition whatsoever. So we just need to keep changing our system of government until there is no more crime. We need to stop prosecuting criminals, and we should just set them free because they can't help it. He's not saying that at all.
Right.
He's talking about,
he's saying, don't be bad. He's saying, here's a whole list of things that are bad, and I'm judging anybody who does these things. Judge, judge, judge. And that's why I put this passage in here, because I'm like, who's saying this? You know, I just think I'm thinking about how we are as a culture, and we have this idea of Jesus where we're just saying, oh, Jesus, he would never, ever, you know, make these judgments. He doesn't make people feel bad. It's like, wow, quite a list, Jesus. You're a meanie.
Right. So I also want to add, though, that this passage, there are many passages that are clear about that all foods have been declared clean. This is one of them. It says, so Jesus is saying, whatever goes into the person from outside cannot defile him. It is what comes from within that defiles him. And specifically says, thereby he declared all foods clean. That is not some random late Christian scholar giving their opinion. That's the scripture in the Gospel of Mark. And so, yeah, I was having a conversation with someone not too long ago when he was saying it's just not clear. It's not clear whether or not we have to follow the Old Testament dietary laws. I just wish that Jesus would have said more clearly, or that the Bible said that in like 2 sentences or something that, you know, that all foods are clean, if that's what he really wanted. And so I sent him these 2 verses, or these few verses, these like 2 sentences, and was like, there's what you were asking for. Is this settled now?
And I picked these verses, so we're not picking on him. I picked these 2 for the list of judgments, the judginess. So definitely. I would say if you did any of these things, and we've all probably done some of these things, you know, there's forgiveness available. Just maybe try not to do it again, and don't try to tell other people that these things are good. Just let Jesus have his say. You've got your forgiveness. That's all you need. Don't go out there and try to change the world so that they think these things are good and good things are evil. That's what I sometimes see people doing. And it's no problem to fall short of the standard. Just don't try to override Jesus when he says what the standard is.
Yeah, I think of Jesus saying, you are forgiven. Now go and sin no more.
That's right. All right. So I think that's a good place for us to stop for today. I hope everybody picks up their Bibles and reads the Gospels. And it's fun. You get your orders from the commanding officer. You have a big adventure, you know, set out for you where you have the opportunity to follow the leader, and you shouldn't miss out on that. All right. So if you enjoyed this episode, please consider helping us out by sharing this podcast with your friends, writing us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. I think we're up to 61 on Apple, which is great. So subscribing and commenting on YouTube, we're at 500. So nobody unsubscribe. And hitting the like button wherever you listen to the podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we'll see you again in the next one.